In the back seat of her mother's minivan, Ashley admired the passing autumn foliage and contemplated the excitement and fear she and her best friends were sure to experience at Frank's Forest, an attraction featuring actors as zombies, witches, and werewolves galore, all trying to kill the visitors. For 4 years, she, Emily, Sarah, and Zoe had wanted to go to this haunted attraction. Each girl pleaded with her parents, only to hear the same answer: "You're too young." Now that they were freshmen in high school, their parents decided they were old enough to experience it. To make it even better, they had the opportunity to partake in the thrills and fear on the night of Halloween as well as that of a full moon. Despite this, Ashley had a sinking worry in the pit of her stomach. Though she knew thousands of people had participated in Frank's Forest and loved it, she was certain something would go terribly wrong. Over the course of the past year, Ashley started seeing a therapist to discuss her increasing feelings of paranoia. At first, it was focused on the paranormal. She claimed to see countless ghosts lurking around her home. Since her parents had no reasons to believe otherwise, they kept an eye out for supernatural happenings around the house. To their dismay, her parents never experienced any ghostly activities. The spirits only seemed to want to interact with Ashley. Once her ghost phase moved on, she felt as if someone was constantly staring at her. Whether she was in class or with her family or completely isolated in her own room, she could not shake the feeling that someone was watching her. This feeling kept her constantly on edge and would not allow her to sleep for more than a few hours at a time. She realized she must be going crazy and admitted it to her parents. Therapy worked as long as she didn't have a reason to have paranoid thoughts anymore. However, her feelings of paranoia only intensified when her friends reminded her of their dream to go to Frank's Forest. Ever since that conversation 6 months ago, Ashley has had nightmares where she and her friends have died in hundreds of different, gory ways. These nightmares only got worse when they made definitive plans to go on Halloween night, the night of a full moon. Her paranoia convinced her there would be real werewolves there that would transform and maul all her friends and her to death. Although her fear was petrifying at times, she refused to ruin the fun and excitement for her friends. Ashley decided not to tell them of her therapy sessions or her unshakable worries. "Ash, are you okay?" Sarah asked tentatively from the adjacent seat. "I'm fine, I'm just a little nervous, I guess," she assured. Zoe turns around from the passenger seat, glaring at her with an annoyed expression. "Why are you nervous? We finally have a chance to go, and you're going to ruin it for all of us. Just enjoy it, won't ya?" she demanded. "Now, Zoe, that's enough," Ashley's mum interfered. "Come on, Zoe, don't be rude," Emily chimed in. "By the way, thanks for the ride, Mrs. Hamilton." "Yeah, thanks," the other girls added. "No problem, girls," Mrs. Hamilton said, smiling as she turned down a dirt road and into an unfamiliar forest. After 5 minutes, the girls saw a small yet packed parking lot. Mrs. Hamilton backed into a space and turned to face the girls again. "I don't know this area well, and it's quite a drive, so I think I'll find somewhere to relax until you girls are done. Just shoot me a text or call me when you're all done and I'll be back for you, okay?" "All right," Ashley answered as her friends climbed out of the vehicle. "Ashley, please try to relax and have fun tonight. I know it might seem scary, but don't freak yourself out. Your friends are with you, and they all want to have fun with you, too." "I know, Mom. Thanks again. I love you." "I love you too, sweetie." Once Ashley exited the van and the girls crossed the lot, Mrs. Hamilton pulled out of her spot and back down the road. After the girls watched Mrs. Hamilton leave, Sarah interrupted the silence. "We don't want to be late, guys," she said, gesturing toward a narrow dirt path with a tickets sign handwritten in red paint. The girls walked silently down the path for a minute until they reached the ticket booth. Sitting inside was a woman with dark circles under her eyes and an uncommonly pale face. "4 of you?" she asked in a husky voice. All 4 nodded. "That'll be $80. Each handed her a $20 bill, which she placed in a cash register. Behind this ticket booth is a group of picnic tables. That's where your guides will be meeting in a few minutes. Until we meet again." She smirked at them as they passed. Once they are out of earshot, Zoe commented. She was creepy. "Are you guys sure we can handle this?" Ashley wondered nervously. "Of course, Ash. We'll be fine," Emily reassured her. "We just paid for our tickets, anyway," Zoe reminded her. "If you don't wanna do it, I guess you don't have to. You're just out $20. "Look, there's no need to make such a big deal out of this, guys," Sarah chimed in. "Plenty of people have gone here before, and it must be pretty good if it's still open. Let's have fun." Ashley sighed and nodded. "Sorry, guys, I'm not sure why I feel this way. But I can do this." She lied to appease her friends. The girls approached the picnic tables, all of which are occupied by couples and small groups in their late teens and early 20s, speaking of their excitement and anxiety about this upcoming experience. In total there were around 100 fellow visitors. Once the girls found a spot to sit together, they idly chatted for a few minutes until the actors slowly approached. There were 2 physically fit actors and a skinny actress. One man donned a heavy mane and excess amounts of thick hair on every visible inch of skin. The other's skin was a haunting grey color, and as he sluggishly shuffled forward, he brought the unmistakable odor of rotting flesh. The woman wore a skin-tight, seductive black ensemble with a velvet red cape, featuring pointy vampire teeth and sticky blood around her lips. Ashley shuddered immediately upon recognizing the monster the actors represented. She was right about a werewolf being there, and was now absolutely convinced they were going to die. Every part of her wanted to turn around and go home, but she couldn't explain it to her friends in a sensible way. "Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We will begin as your guides and transform into your worst nightmares," Werewolf introduced in a menacing growl. "Basically, we will lead you into the area and leave you on your own," Vampy added. "Do any of you have questions before we begin?" Zombie asked. Ashley called out, "How long will this take?" The trio exchanged a look and chuckled ominously. "However long it takes. It depends on how much of a fight everybody puts up," Vampy responded, winking at Ashley. Ashley involuntarily shivered. By asking that question, she made herself, and her group of friends, an easy target, she was sure. "Guys, I have a really bad feeling about this," she whispered desperately. "We can't do this. I can't let us do this." "What's your problem, Ash?" "They're actors. They're supposed to intimidate us and make us afraid. It's their job," Zoe snapped quietly. "Don't be rude, Zoe," Emily scolded. "Ash, it'll be okay. Do you realize how many people come to this every year and have an amazing time? Seriously, we're gonna walk out of here safe and sound. I promise." "All right, everybody follow us," Zombie commanded as he and his comrades turned around to head back in the direction from which they came. Ashley exhaled deeply and looked to her friends. "Here we go," she murmured as they walked side by side, following their temporary guides. After a silent and eerie walk deep into the woods, Werewolf, Vampy, and Zombie abruptly stopped. "We've arrived at our destination," Werewolf explained. "Now, we must reunite with our comrades. All of us will return in 5 minutes' time. We take pleasure in hunting humans and making feasts of them," Vampy added, smirking. "Each of us is famished. If you do not desire to become a meal, I would suggest that you hide or attempt to escape. However, half our pleasure comes from the thrill of the hunt. Therefore, you cannot stick together as one large group. It would be much too simple to track you down and devour every last one of you. The people you came here with are the only ones you may stay with," Zombie said. "Know that our next encounter will be fatal. We, werewolves, vampires, and zombies, are the only ones who can fatally wound you. Our other friends are simply devices to terrify you. Your screams are also clear indicators of your location. If you encounter our less deadly friends, refrain from shouting out if you value your lives," Vampy supplemented. "We sound like soulless monsters, and rightly so," Werewolf augmented. "Despite this, we are not completely unreasonable creatures. If your group is the last group standing, we will restrain ourselves and let you go free. Oh, and don't even bother calling outsiders for assistance. You have no cell reception. If you don't believe me, go ahead. Take out your phones." Immediately, every human pulls out their cell phone. Each one has the same message on the screen: "No service." Zoe, Emily, and Sarah look around at one another, both impressed and slightly worried. "Your 5 minutes begin once we can no longer see you. A generous gift since our eyesight is much better than yours," Zombie concluded. "I hope to see many of you soon. Good luck." He and his comrades crept backwards until they were no longer visible. As soon as the group was left to its own devices, couples and small groups immediately branched off and began walking away in several different directions, talking quietly amongst themselves. "I think we can be the last group to be found if we jog instead of walk," Zoe suggested. Sarah and Emily nod in agreement as the girls begin their run in a direction unique from the rest of the crowd, backtracking toward the ticket booth. "What's our strategy?" Emily wondered. "We do whatever we can to be the last ones standing," Ashley answered grimly, assuming her friends now agreed with her worries. "It's good we're heading in the opposite direction of the monsters. It should take longer for them to find us." As they progress, they heard the familiar sound of a wolf's howl, a sound that stopped them in their tracks. Living in an area where it was common for wolves to appear in someone's backyard, the girls all knew it was a genuine howl, not a human imitation. They wouldn't have a tourist attraction like this in a forest where there are wolves prowling around, would they? Ashley questioned. This was proof enough for her that the werewolf was real, and if he was, so were the others. They must have speakers in the tops of the trees and a recording of a wolf howl, Zoe rationalized. "Come on, we need to pick up the pace." The girls continue running until they heard a series of blood-curdling, paralyzing screams from behind them. Once again, the group stopped. Ashley began to shake uncontrollably as she knew the screams were real, too. "Our 5 minutes must be up," Emily stated matter-of-factly. The others hushed her. "If they started already, we need to keep quiet and keep moving," Zoe whispered. "We want to last as long as possible, right? We need to get our money's worth." "Do you think everybody found each other back there and kept close together?" Sarah wondered softly. How many screams were there? I don't know, and I don't want to know. They don't concern us, Zoe stated diplomatically. All I care about is us making it close to the end, if not the very end. Let's go. After a few more minutes of uninterrupted silence and running, more blood-curdling screams break out from behind them, closer this time. Others are heading back here, which means the monsters are, too, Zoe observed quietly. We need to pick up the pace. However, before they could do that, they heard a crashing sound from directly behind them. As each girl turned around, she gasped and covered her mouth to stifle the screams. A lifeless, pale, and hauntingly thin female body lay limply inside the enormous dent of a previously healthy and stick-straight tree, featuring 2 puncture wounds on her neck and little trickles of blood dried onto her neck. Do you see the dent in the tree? Sarah shrieks, forgetting about the importance of muted voices. Humans can't throw that hard, even from a short distance away. They either have a catapult, or... All eyes turn to Ashley as they realize her worries were both justified and correct. I told you guys I didn't want to do this, she murmured as tears formed in her eyes. As the girls' faces slowly lose their color, they attempt to walk slowly in the direction for which they were heading. We need to keep moving, Emily muttered, emotionless. We're not getting out of here alive, are we? Sarah asked them. I don't think anyone is, Ashley responded honestly. After 30 seconds of lifeless walking, they hear leaves rustle behind them. As they turn around to investigate the source of the noise, they hear it from the previous direction, as well. All 4 girls realized instantaneously that they were surrounded. At the moment, none of the monsters were visible yet. Are we the final group? Emily called out timidly. We heard plenty of screaming going on. Does that mean we get out of here alive? The response consisted entirely of growls and devious laughter. We aren't known for our honesty, the familiar vampire voice responded, a smirk apparent in her tone. Well, I'm sorry we ever doubted you, Ashley, Zoe said, reaching for her hand as the girls felt the monsters closing in on them. Once they were finally visible, Ashley noted the clothing dampened with blood and the dried blood wringing their mouths. In the moment before the 4 girls were preyed upon like wild animals, Ashley felt a strange happiness, finally realizing that at least her paranoia regarding Frank's forest wasn't paranoia at all. So those that know me, and know what I do, call me the cleaner. I'm what you might call a bounty hunter, except I deal with very special cases, stuff that nobody else can really handle. I seek out the filth, the otherworldly beings, even what you might think is supernatural, and I terminate it. I don't discriminate, I don't hesitate, I just squeeze the trigger. I'm not open for hire, I only take contracts from one person. And no, I can't bring you into the fold. It's something you're born into, and there's only ever a handful of us alive at a time. I can't go too far into the details, but I am allowed to say this. It all starts with a slip of paper, usually an envelope in the mail. Sometimes though, in very rare cases, I will get a letter in person. I call her Star, she's not allowed to tell me her real name. And Star isn't her code name. Traditionally someone like her would just be called a messenger. Nothing else, that is all they are. I call her Star, though. She has a real bright personality, figured it fit. Now, I'm gonna share a story with you all. Now I'm not really a storyteller, so you'll have to forgive me if the format is weird. But I'll let you in on my life, peel back the curtain just a little. I had a case a few years back. Started, like I said, with a knock at the door, which always gets my heart pumping. You see, we cleaners, we don't have friends, and we don't visit each other. So a knock at the door can only mean one thing: Star is there waiting with a special case. I unlocked the deadbolt, grabbed the cold doorknob, and slowly edged the door open. There was Star, as expected, greeting me with the huge smile she always had on. "Morning, Mr. Clean. How ya doin'?" she asked politely, moving her bangs out of her eyes. I returned the smile and motioned for her to enter. Still alive, so I'm doing better than most of the people I know. We made our way into the kitchen, and I poured her a glass of water, something I always did for a messenger. I'm gonna take a wild guess and assume this isn't a social visit. I handed her the glass of water. "Oh, thank you." She took the glass and sipped on the water before replying, "You know, one of these days I'm just gonna pop by to hang out." It was a nice thought, but I knew it could never happen. It's against the rules, and no one breaks the rules. But you are right, she pulled an envelope from her back pocket. "This one is gonna be a toughie." There were 2 pictures ... Usually, I only got one. She placed them on the table. The photos were of 2 monstrous-looking beasts, hairy and huge. I instantly recognized what they were, and immediately got a pit in my stomach. Star must have noticed because she responded with a reassuring pat on the back. "You can do it." They were lycanthropes, or more commonly known as werewolves. They're about as tough as it gets. "Yeah, probably. But 2, really?" I shook my head and sighed. "Am I to take them on alone?" "Yuppers. And we both know what that means." She paused to drink more water. "They're mating, so we're gonna need you to deal with this as quickly as possible. Can't be giving them a chance to separate and disappear. Lycanthropes are pretty much what they appear to be like in movies. Vicious, strong, fast, practically the perfect killing machine. However, in real life, they don't have any special weakness. They die the same way as everything else. And the best way to do it is blood loss. Explosives work well too, but that can tend to get messy and you might blow yourself up. I prefer hit and run tactics. That's a problem when there's 2 though. You have to severely injure both of them before they have the chance to rip you to shreds. It is preferred to take them out before they have the chance to morph. You've got a 50-50 on that though. Normally you won't see 2 in the same place because they are very territorial. I groaned again. Fuck, alright. I'll do it. Give me 2 weeks tops. If I don't check in, I'm dead. Contact 2. If that happens, she can take over the case. I doubt it'll come to that. Star always confident in my abilities. You always come out on top, one way or another. I snickered. "Yeah? Well, just give me the details. The sooner I plan this suicide mission, the better." I was awarded a laugh from Star. "Yes, sir. So here what we got." So of course, I can't actually go into the details of the locations and the contacts we used in the area. All I can say is that the events went down in a town in the States. I'm sure the more curious of you will try to search for news reports and whatnot, but I promise you that you're not going to find anything. Any shred of evidence that was there is gone. My family has been doing this for a very long time. We're a lot better at this than you are. You will find nothing. Now when a cleaner goes looking for information, there's really only one thing that can give you reliable facts: an imp. That's what we call them. They don't really have a name in the English language. They're half human, half I guess what you would call a demon. They're about as close to human as monsters can get. I know that may sound scary, but there's a reason we call them imps. They're small, weak, feeble creatures. The only thing they have going for them is their longevity, pretty much immortal. And only a handful of them are still living. So being that they pose no threat, we don't put them on the kill list. Imps are good for one thing, and one thing only, information gathering. Ins and outs, they know it all. And for a price, they'll tell you everything you need to know. So when I arrived at the small town, I arranged a meeting with the local imp, via my contacts. Naturally, he wanted to meet in a public place. The otherworldly aren't really trusting of us cleaners. It was the middle of the day when we met. I spotted him sitting on the bench, right in the middle of the park. To the average passerby, he might have just looked like a small odd-looking middle-aged man, not worth more than 2 looks. I instantly noted the signs, however. Pointed left ear, hunched posture, 1 red eye and 1 blue. Imps all have the same disfigurements. They can easily blend in with contacts and whatnot though. You might have even met one before without knowing it. I plopped down next to him. Mind if we cut to the chase, imp? The imp grunted and turned to face me, his thick brows already furrowed. You're all the same, you cleaners. Been dealing with you lot for over a century, always impatient. Never enough time to chat, eh? He sighed deeply, obviously not wanting to be there. I shrugged my shoulders. Sorry if I don't stop to ask you about the weather. I've got a job to do, and neither of us gets paid by the hour. Now tell me about the doggies. The imp looked at me, eyebrows still furrowed, notably displeased with my response. Well, treating them like dogs will definitely get you 6 feet under. I didn't respond, silently encouraging him to continue. There's 2 of them. They're young, early maybe mid-20s. They're gonna be strong, but you've got the upper hand with experience, I would think. He paused as a mother and her rather chubby kid passed by. 3 victims so far, but they were all human. So they won't be ready for something like you. He scratched his hairy chin and looked at me with his mismatched eyes. The female's name is Karen, the other Brandon. And where are Karen and Brandon staying? I inquired. There's a lodge in the woods, east all the way at the back. They're on private property. They stay there on the weekends. He rubbed his eyes and yawned. Are we done yet? I need a nap. Last question. Why haven't they been caught yet? 3's a lot of missing people. The imp was quick to respond. They only take homeless people that won't be missed. And before I could ask anything else, he was up on his feet hobbling away. Good luck, cleaner. You're gonna need it. Can't say that I'll miss you if you die. He cackled as he walked away. Charming creatures. He was right, I'd need all their luck. Killing 1 werewolf is difficult, killing 2 approaches impossible. You have to plan, weigh the risks heavily and hope it all goes smooth. And it has to go smooth. Bearing that in mind, I rested up, got familiar with the terrain, and eventually I found myself hiking through the thickest parts of the forest a few days later. It was dark, not a single hint of moonlight was able to push its way through the thick canopy. I had decided that it would be better to take them out after daylight hours. By then, they would have their next victim already and the feast would already be underway. Werewolves are emotional creatures, so I could only hope they were caught up in the ritual. Pitiful that I had to let a civilian die in the process. Not all hunts are without collateral damage. I reassured myself. Took about half an hour of wading through the thick trees, before I started approaching a clearing. I could see the small cabin in the distance. At first glance, it was quite homely looking. Wooden walls, a fireplace smoking, even a sign that said welcome. There was one thing that did break the illusion, however. The screams, the bone-chilling screams of a man whose flesh was being peeled from his bones. I could see him, laying on a table, arms and legs strapped down, a man and a woman standing over him. The man had a large blade and was slicing through his skin like it was butter. They were chanting in an old language, one that doesn't have a name. Their voices were ... guttural, and a deeper pitch than humans were possible of making. It was the mating ceremony. They flay the victim alive, eat the skin, drain the blood into buckets, and then smear themselves in the blood. It was a sick and twisted ritual, and I didn't give them the chance to finish it. I looked down the iron sights of my rifle, picking my first target, the male, Brandon. The first shot ripped through the forest until it found its mark. The bullet tore through the man's chest, stopping his heart in an instant. Blood spattered on the ground as he slumped to his knees and fell to his face. Karen reacted almost instantaneously and dashed behind the trees to the right of the house. I expected that though. Werewolf reflexes were remarkable even when in human form. I already knew what would happen next. She would change ... become the monster I was sent to kill. The werewolf transformation is a slow, excruciatingly painful process. So I've heard at least. Bones grow and break to morph the body into a massive beast. Hair stabs through the skin creating roots where none existed before. Their teeth all fall out one by one and are replaced by vicious fangs. Finger and toenails are pushed out, and in their place, only sharp bones remain, twice as long, strong and sharp. Close quarter combat against them is, well, a terrible idea. Almost always fatal. I sighed and checked my surroundings. There were no signs of Karen. Maybe she. An abrupt inhuman screech tore through the forest. It was distant, but they were known for their ability to cover ground fast. Everything got quiet after that. Fuck. I could feel the tremor in my hand already. Her transformation was complete and I had just killed her lover. Again, they are very emotional creatures. Passionate to their very core. I emptied the chamber of my rifle and pushed another round in. It wasn't human anymore. Slowly I started making my towards the lodge, taking care to not make the slightest of sounds. I was inching my way to the ritual table. He helped me. I could hear the man croak out as I neared. They're going to kill me ... please help me. His voice was getting weaker. I looked over his bloody mess of a body, or, at least, what was left of it. You need to ... call an ambulance. His breathing was more labored now, wheezing as his lungs fought for oxygen. I rested my hand on his forehead. It's gonna be alright. Close your eyes, I'll take it from here. He tried to say something more but his eyes slowly drifted shut, and his breathing eventually stopped. It was as shit he was to die. I let my eyes trail down to the other dead man. Brandon, the lycanthrope. He was young. Brown hair, blue eyes, and a hole in his chest. On the surface level, you can't even tell that they aren't human. There's no giveaway like there is with the imps. Werewolves are hard to find, unless, of course, they're morphed and hunting you. I nudged him with my boot. No movement. Good, I thought. I stepped over his body and moved towards their cabin. I had to shut myself in. I needed to trap the beast. I opened the door slowly, pushing it with my rifle, making sure to close it behind me. The fireplace was still lit, making the shadows dance on the walls. Very homely indeed, I said absent-mindedly. And it was. There wasn't much to it, but it was nice. A sofa and recliner by the fire, A kitchen past that, no TV though. I looked back at the dead body outside. I guess they've got other interest. There were paintings on the walls. Mostly of wolves and the such. Brandon's signature was on a few of them. Guess he was a painter when he wasn't busy being a werewolf. Another screech tore through the forest, much closer this time. It was stalking the tree line, deciding how to attack. I snapped back to the task at hand. Right. Best get to it then. I needed to immobilize the beast. I smiled as I dropped my duffel bag to the floor, and set aside 2 large bear traps. Even a lycanthrope can't ignore steel teeth biting into its bones. I placed one by the door, maybe 5 feet away, and one by the window next to the fireplace. This ought to do. I waited, and I waited. 3 hours went by before I heard it again. The beast was smart to wait that long. I was tired and the recliner was definitely helping me to fall asleep, especially with the warmth of the fire. However, the second I heard it, my adrenaline kicked into overdrive. It was circling the house, heavy footfalls making solid thuds. It made no attempt to hide its presence, growling every other breath. Werewolves were masters at stalking their prey. You can only hear them when they want you to. It's no wonder she was able to get to the house without me noticing. She wanted me intimidated and I was. I could hear the slow scraping of her talons as she carved into the house. The low guttural growl as she grew bolder with each step. Boom. The cabin shook violently as something smashed against it. Paintings fell from the walls. My body trembled, and then it got quiet. No more footsteps. No more growling. It was in kill mode. Shit. Every hair on my body was at attention. Goosebumps rose on my arms, and the tremor in my hand returned. All the experience in the world can't save you from the terror of a pissed-off lycanthrope. I took a deep breath and slowly stood from the chair, rifle in hand. I doused the fire and positioned myself in the center of the room. Equal distance to either of the traps. With the fire out it was dark, and hopefully, it wouldn't see the bear traps. You will die. It was a deep, almost demonic thing to hear a werewolf talk. Before I could react, the beast burst through the front door. I had to duck as the door flew past my head and crashed into the kitchen. There wasn't much light, but I could see enough. Maybe 8 feet tall, black fur, several 100 pounds. It was frightening. Muscles bulging, eyes glaring, fangs bared. It was pissed ... at me. I couldn't afford to waste a second, though. I raised the rifle and opened fire. Shot after shot, 3 times I fired on the beast. The attack barely phased it as it only walked closer. The bullets ripped through its body, and blood slowly leaked out, coating the monster with a crimson glow. But it didn't care. They're tough. I just had to buy time, wait for it to step into the trap. That's it, come and get me. I shouted, squeezing the trigger once more. The bullet hit its ear and the beast roared in anger. Just one more step and I had the monster, It stopped right in front of the trap and leaned forward so that its head was in the moonlight. Ears flat against its wolf-like skull, grey eyes staring me down, as it bared its fangs at me. It flung the bear trap aside, causing it to clatter against the wall and snap shut. Die ... now. It roared menacingly and before I could react it lunged at me, clearing the distance in one leap. It swatted me like a fly and sent me crashing into the fireplace. I hit hard and nearly cracked my skull open. No, the brick. Her sharp claws had sliced through my vest like butter and gashed me open. Everything was blurry and my head felt like it was swimming in circles. I managed to push myself off of the ground. I was greeted with another ear-splitting screech. I felt my eardrums pop as I fell back against the fireplace. Even from across the room, I could feel how hot its breath was and the smell ... it reeked of death. However, I couldn't afford not to act. I reached for the pistol on my belt and opened fire again. I was dazed, but I got lucky. The bullet hit it in the head. It wasn't enough to kill it, not by a long shot, but it gave me a chance to move. I could see it fall back and break the small dining table it was next to. It was disoriented, and I used that to make my way to the window. I stumbled as I walked, almost falling on the trap that I had set earlier. I lifted the glass pane and threw myself onto the window sill. I let my body slowly slide out the other side. I needed to put distance back between us. Formulate a new plan. Fuck. My ankle erupted in pain. I could hear an audible pop as the werewolf crushed my bone with its grip, while also digging its sharp claws into my skin. It had caught my leg just as I was sliding out. "You fucking bitch!" I shouted. My entire leg felt as though it was on fire. I was in a bad spot. More or less dangling out of the window. I could see its head sticking halfway out of the window now. I fired multiple rounds into its jaw, not giving it a chance to finish a sentence. The beast jerked its head back, smashing the top of the window as it did. I felt my ankle slip from its grip and my head smash on the ground as I fell onto the grass. I couldn't stand. My vision was fading, and the last thing I could hear was the beast pounding on the walls. Yes, I groaned as sat forward. I was alive, but only barely. I was in a puddle of my own blood, and I couldn't use my left leg. Took me nearly 10 minutes to stand up, and another few to hobble over to the cabin window. What was left of it anyway? Karen the werewolf was seemingly dead. I leaned myself against the walls and peered inside. From what I could see, it looked as though the beast had bled out. Several bullet wounds, a bear trap still clamped on its ankle. Guess you stepped on it right before you snatched my leg. Even large pieces of glass sticking out the back of its head. Looks like you died trying to break the wall down, though. I pulled my burner out of my pocket and dialed my only contact. Mission is a success. Gonna need a cleanup crew and a pickup for myself. Oh, and bring Helga. I'm hurt pretty bad. I let myself slide down against the wall. I drifted off looking at the stars. They looked especially dull that night. Took me a few days to wake up from that. Spent even longer in recovery, which doctors can only get you so far. That's the story for now though. You don't have to believe me, but I assure you, some of the legends of old are true. I might post again. I've got plenty to tell. For now though, I've got business to attend to. Sunshine gleamed straight through my eyes as if my eyelids were simply glass. I always hated sunlight. It's just too happy. The moon seems better, and don't call me a werewolf or anything senseless like that. I just prefer the quieter and more somber tone of the moonlight. It gives me peace. It's something I can always look forward to after a long day of work. I closed the blinds to stop letting the sunshine in. Instantly I felt a strong sensation of relief. The small state of Wisconsin had always been too sunny to me. Then again, any place that has the least bit of sunshine I probably hate too, and think it also is too sunny for me. Heck, even Washington, where I came from, is too sunny for me, and it's known as the rain state. I walked towards the kitchen to get a glass of water. Grabbing the large glass cup, I went to the sink and flipped it on, ready for the flow of the liquid that gives life to shower into my cup. However, I was greeted with just 4-5 drips of water and then nothing. I had heard about the drought of Salishfair, even from how little I go out. People talk about it on the internet, the newspaper, things like that. It hadn't affected me, so I never really paid attention to it until now. The moon pulled the tides of water, essentially making water at the mercy of the moon. A servant, if you please. Anything related to the moon is quite dear to me, so I had to go investigate. I browsed the internet for at least what I thought was an hour, looking for some source of the drought. It's odd with the drought, just 2 days ago it rained plentiful, and rain isn't too uncommon, so no one knows where the drought is from. I tracked down the central pipe that dispenses water in our city. In our town, there's this huge water tower underground which everyone connects their houses to. It's sod. Who would put a water tower underground? I had to do another hour of searching just to find the address of the tower. It seems almost as if it was supposed to be hidden. I exited my house with the address printed onto a white slip of paper. I took off with my puny little bicycle. I've had the bike ever since I was a little child. Ignore the sunshine, I told myself. I felt angst as I was riding in the sun, and my throat was parched. I had to get myself something to drink. I stopped my bike near a rack in a gas station. I went through the front door, looking for a water fountain. Not seeing anything to drink from there, I guess I only had the option to buy a water bottle. I looked into my pocket for some cash. I had about $2, or about 1.50 euros for the people in the UK. I looked at the price of a water bottle. It was a whopping $5, once again for the U.K, about 3.50. The drought was way worse than I had originally thought it was. Worried, I even checked the bathroom to see if there was any water in them. They stunk awfully, as there was not a single drip of water in the toilets, so they had nothing to reduce the stench or flush the waste down. I hastily exited the bathroom and headed back my bike. Another thing I noticed was that there seemed to be slightly less people out today. By normal people's standards, today would have been a beautiful day, but there were as many people as there would be on a very quiet one. I continued biking towards my destination, address in one hand, both grasped onto the handlebars. I wasn't as good as I used to be, my hands were shaky due to dehydration, and it had been a while since I rode my tiny bike. After about 10 minutes of riding, I finally found my destination, mostly by accident. I rode over a manhole and fell off, scraping my elbows badly. A groan of pain and disgust left my mouth, looking at the raw and bloodied skin. Once I regained from the dust and dirt on the ground, I inspected the manhole's top more closely, wiping the grime off. It read Salishfair Water Storage, and some dates and names that were so grungy that it made it impossible to read. I went through the entrance, leaving it open for the light. I stepped down the ladder. The shaft didn't have a single source of light, so I had to let the sunshine guide me. It was the first time I didn't despise its existence. Once I stepped off the ladder, I noted that I was in a tunnel made of cracked and rusted stone and iron. It went down, and there seemed to be various shafts to the left and right, but looking down, I saw a dim light. I slowly walked down the stone steps, making sure that I didn't trip or fall. I was halfway there, and the sunlight was completely gone. I swear I saw a silhouette of a figure with disfigured, long fingers at the end of the tunnel for a split second. It just dashed past. I hesitated on continuing. I contemplated what I could have seen. Maybe it was just a man running by, in a hurry to get things working. It was probable, but most likely I was just hallucinating. I hadn't any water in about 36 hours, I was injured, and I rode my bike, so I was exhausted mentally and physically. I decided to resume my careful walk towards the light in the tunnel, watchful for that thing. I did a quick search of things I might be able to use as a weapon. All I had was a bunch of sand in my bag. I finally reached the light and was greeted with a huge square room, dimly lit. I looked around for some kind of light I'd be able to pull to make it brighter, and I found a switch. Flicking it, I heard a loud buzz, and the lights came on. I wish I hadn't turned the lights on. I should have left. I should have just ignored the drought and assumed it would be over soon. Or maybe, I just should have left the town entirely to ignore the drought, because then I wouldn't have been able to see that horror. I saw piles of bodies, hundreds, maybe even thousands, on the floor, still bleeding. Women, men, and even children. They had giant red gashes. You'd see the veins ripped out and thrown, and the sickest part? Some were still alive. They were moaning, and in weak, tired voices, begging for help. I realized what the cause of the drought was. Where the bodies were lying were in the exact same spot where water should have been. The bodies were clogging the water. Rarely any water was getting through, but it'd be going through those dead, mangled bodies, full of with blood and bacteria. Then I had another question. What sick monster could have done this? 1 week ago I moved away from Salis Fair. I can't stand thinking about that horrid place nowadays. That creature killed everyone in my old town. It hunts people down like a savage. People have been disappearing lately all over America, and the radius is spreading. I'm concerned I'll be next. Though, there's one more thing that worries me in my new town. There seems to be a drought going on.